Okay, my fellow Americans, I'm back with you with more proof. I missed some things from my first one about the ridiculous police actions that this government wants to kill off our youth with and torture them. And I'm reading from notes. And by the way, you shouldn't ever elect anybody that has to read from a teleprompter or everything. If he doesn't know it well enough to do it from notes, you shouldn't be in a position to run this country in any way. Okay, all right. I'm sure you know this, but you probably are not aware of it. It's come on you so slowly, and by the tyrants or attorneys and judges, of course. We don't have a legal system. The Constitution is totally conflicted by the Patriot Act and other laws. There's constant contradictions. You can plea bargain. You can kill somebody. You got to go to a lawyer. You can get off. Look at O.J. Simpson. It's just ridiculous. You can run drugs, and if you give information away, they can relocate you with another name. There is no legal system. I want you all, when this is done, to pick up your dictionary, college dictionary, or any kind of valid dictionary, Webster's, and look at the definition of law. You know, it's a subjective society. You have to have definition on terms. You can't make your own definition up on terms. If you do, you have chaos. Somewhat organized chaos, but it's chaos. The definition of a law is a rule that cannot be argued. A rule that cannot be argued. They argue it. There's no need really for the Supreme Court. All there is a need for the Constitution and, say, the Ten Commandments, and maybe a few other laws. And you break the law, you have a certain penalty. An absolute law and absolute penalties. But they have no comprehension. It's almost common sense. I don't know how you could stand up for this. It makes me sick when I watch these legal shows and watch people get away with murder and rationalizations. It's just, preposterous, okay? What I missed is the Star Trek concept. And all Star Trek, I'm sure you've heard of it, they had this prime directive. Whenever they went out in space and entered other societies and worlds, they could not interfere with the developing society. And that's the same thing we must implement. It's just disaster when you do. You got to let them develop on their own and stay out and not police action. Perhaps the only thing you can do is like what Kennedy did with the Peace Corps. Is probably the only benevolent thing. Okay, let's get to the thing that they're going to certainly kill me by. They're running around in the White House and Congress right now. It looks like the movie Kill Bill is Kill Ron. They're trying to figure out how to kill me. This is a way to kill me, okay? I'm going to tell you the truth about the Islamic religion, okay? It's not a benevolent religion. It's obvious it is. I'm afraid that why people don't admit this, it's extremely obvious. And so you're not fighting a war against terrorism. You're not. You're fighting a war against Islam right now. And it's been for thousands of years, actually. Well, since Islam was formed in about 512 AD. Okay, first thing. Get an Islamic American translation of the Islamic Bible, or the Quran it's called. Absolute obedience is in there 1,000 times. If you don't obey the Quran and their leaders, they can kill you. That's ridiculous. You can't have absolute obedience. You ever see a Christian church or the rabbi to say you have to absolutely believe me? That's just preposterous. That's, again, evil, not kind, not loving. Any religion that straps bombs on their children and go out and blow up, for the sake of Islam, something is wrong with them. Something is really wrong with that religion. So, to think about that. Muhammad himself was a pedophiliac, which a pedophiliac is a form of insanity. It's in history books. You can find it in a good library. The biggest thing of all is Islam teaches to convert, to pass their religion on, which is fine. So does Christianity. But the difference is Islam teaches that if you can't pass it on, you're to go to war with these people, or it's called a jihad. This is Shiite or Sunni, doesn't matter. This is a religion of evil. So how do you fight it? How do you fight it? Same way they peacefully fight us. Try to convert them. Try your best to convert them here in America. If you can't convert them, you'll have to deport them, because they're all evil people. I know that people are standing up right now and getting all upset and this and that. But the peaceful people in Islam in this country, some of them, are sending money to the terrorist groups. And I don't even like them referral to terrorist groups. We're not fighting terrorist groups. We're fighting Islam. Some of them are peacefully fight us, and some of them fight us with weapons and wars. And it's eventually going to end up in a nuclear war. So you've got to get your politicians and Machiavellian communists to stop this. Okay. 40 million abortions. More than 40 million abortions. This is a real good example how to get through to you the concept of their inevitable way of convincing you how to do things, which is false premise. Okay, there's three false premises in Roe versus Wade, the most primary ones. First of all, they said that woman has the right to do what she wants with her body. I agree with that. But the fact is, the fetus or baby, whatever you want to call it, or the cells forming within the mother's womb, is not part of her body. It's not part of her body. She's an incubator for that. Medical science, logic, everything tells you that. False premise. Second false premise is it's not a human being until the third trimester, 21st. I don't care when it is. It's a human being when the first two cells recreate. Here's why. That's analogous to saying that your 12-year-old son or daughter is not a human being because she hasn't gone through puberty or he hasn't gone through puberty. It's the same thing. I mean, if those two cells are allowed to develop, it's going to be a human being and incubated by the mother, not part of the mother. And the last and most important false premises, by them allowing abortion through Roe versus Wade, the Supreme Court, which all should be thrown out and dissolved, is that it conflicts the Constitution. It conflicts every state law, city law, every common sense law to humanity. And if you can't conflict the law, the Constitution says you can't, and logic says you can't. Sure, societies are subjective. That's why there's laws. Has to be absolute laws and absolute punishments. Therefore, it's absurd. Abortion is absurd. And I'm not giving you any theistic perspective. I'm giving you a logical, very, very, very sound perspective of this. And I have no idea why people don't argue it on that basis. This should immediately go to the Supreme Court and it should be thrown out. There's no validity to it at all, allowing abortions. It's killing. It's killing. And it's killing this society. It breaks down the Constitution, that we're supposed to be set up on. Okay, let's give you some more stories, okay? And I don't think I'm going to have time for this one and this section right here, so let me give you a small story, okay? The root of all evil is attorneys. I'm sorry to say that. And why my best friend was an attorney? It's because what they're taught in school. They're not taught to seek justice. They're taught to win. If they got a serial killer or a atomic bomb insane man, they're taught to win for him. That's the wrong premise. In justice we were formed. They have to seek justice. If they get a serial killer and go to the judge and say, "Hey, I know he's a serial killer. Let's execute him." But no, and criminals know this, that the attorneys have to seek winning for them instead of seeking justice. That has to stop. And again, vote the right people in and that will stop, okay? Another thing, little small things, and I've got some bigger things coming up in other ones. You must allow dissidents. When dissidents prevailed in this country in the first 150, 175 years, politicians couldn't take over. They were afraid of dissidents. The FBI doesn't allow dissidents. They come after you and will get you, okay? You have to allow people to, even if they're full of malarkey, you have to allow them to speak out, and not violently, but to speak out. People must hear and win and understand that these concepts are universal for survival, universal for evolution. Okay. The next thing is about the media, and I'm going to have to end this quick because I'm running out of time. There is really no media except Fox Media. Rush Limbaugh, of course, Bill O'Reilly, and there's a few others. Hannity makes me sick because he says support the troops. You support the troops, you're supporting the Machiavellian communists. You have to stop supporting the troops, by the way. Stop supporting the troops. People will understand then that you're supporting the Machiavellian communists. Stop supporting your troops. I hate to say that, but that's a beginning, okay? And if you don't start somewhere, you've got to start there, and they'll stop the police actions when you start that. Okay, thanks.